this is our story. And it's kind of slow going, so I'm really going to just jump over even more chunks of this book because a lot of people have said in the comments, and I agree, that this writing is pretty tedious. So, chapter 21, Lily. The Lily character is the one that really resembles Wendi herself. She's kind of making fun of how outdated and tacky the people in Hiawassee Springs are. She says that, seriously, folks around these parts are frozen in the 1980s. We've got big hair, those big glasses for men, lots of shoulder pads, colorful pumps, and hairsprayed bangs. I almost expect to hear Billie Jean booming from a huge stereo slung across someone's shoulders wherever I go. I love their big hair and their big hearts. I never knew it was possible, but for all its ups and downs, I also love the Wassee. Yeah, doesn't sound very convincing though. So then she's talking about the different clients she's meeting, handling immigration cases, and how she's concerned about trying to get some funding for people. And okay, so toward the end of the chapter, she does talk about Josh, who is the husband in this book that resembles Dan Markel. Okay, so she's afraid that she's neglecting Josh, but he doesn't complain. She's just so tired. She has compassion fatigue dealing with so many people's problems as her job. Lily Billy Goat, I really need to talk. I replied, and I meant it. These days, I could have slept through a nuclear meltdown and thought I was just dreaming that cockroaches had been the sole survivors of the war. Lilybug, he said, as he gently touched my face, hoping the sensation of being prodded about the face would work. It didn't. Lily, I had done it. I had finally exasperated the kindest, gentlest, most patient man known to, well, man. I can't take it anymore. Do you even notice that I'm here? Josh, why are you yelling? I took one of the spare pillows on our bed, pressed it over my head, and tried to get back to sleep. Lily, I'm proud of you. I really am. I want you to be happy here, and I am thrilled that you have found a job that you really care about. But, I tried to gently ask, but what, Josh? It was hard for me not to just go crazy on him. Josh hated ever to hurt anyone's feelings. He hated conflict about almost as much as he hated to hurt people. The only problem was that when he finally did uncork the frustration bottle, it exploded all over the place. But I'm your husband and I need your love, he shouted at me. Even though our faces were only inches apart while we lay on the same bed. Footnote 47. 47, we had purchased a double bed, which I referred to as a, quote, mandatory cuddling, unquote, number, as opposed to a larger king-sized version, which permits, quote, discretionary cuddling, unquote. I figured who needs all that discretion in the beginning of a marriage, right? Turns out we probably did, and more often than I'd really like to admit. It took so long to find the right guy, and I had moved far away from everyone and everything that I knew to be with him. And now what? I couldn't very well just walk out on him. He deserved better than that, and so did I. We had promised to stick it out, for better or worse. Okay, so she tries not to laugh at Josh. Getting back to the text, that was the footnote. She said even when she was a kid, she descended into uncontrollable laughter, and the teachers forced her to leave the classroom and to return only when she could control herself, so she starts laughing at her husband. Josh stared back in stunned silence. And then they end up making love. We made love that night, and for the first time somewhere within me, I hope that in our consensus over laughter, we may have also created life. Okay, well, anyway, one thing I do want to note is that the dialogue seems really phony, kind of stilted at a lot of times because she seems to always use the full words instead of contractions. So people are always saying, I am, I have. Nobody really talks like that. So then there's more stuff about the immigrant women, and she's talking about her work, how tough work is, and these different people she's meeting. She talks to the sheriff. Okay, so there's a lot of stuff in here that doesn't have to do with Josh. And I get the feeling most people are just interested in the Josh chapters. I certainly am, because I think it gives you a window on their relationship. Okay, flip, more Rosa and Mila. Okay, chapter 29, Lily. My clients are also Josh's students. You have to love the Wasi. After spending most of my life in big cities, I can't help but marvel at the coincidences of small town living. Okay, so she goes bowling to try to meet some other Latino women, and she feels like she doesn't fit in because she looks very white. Doesn't fit in there. Then we read some more chapters about the two immigrant women. Okay. Okay. So we finally get to chapter 32, where she talks about getting pregnant. Another footnote here, footnote 58. I used to hate this term, pregnant. The idea that we could be pregnant when it's my belly that protrudes out of my elastic banded pants and my breakfast that hurls out of me each morning. Okay, so she's very hungry. She's constantly eating. Josh is thrilled. I want to be excited too. This baby deserves two parents who are completely excited that this little person is coming to live with them. So she's complaining. She's worried. She doesn't know how it's all going to turn out. She thinks that Josh will be too wrapped up in his teaching and writing and wouldn't even hear the baby crying. They can't afford daycare. So she's probably going to be the one that has to stay home with the baby. So she's really concerned about her ability to work in addition to taking care of the child. Okay. So then she's like talking more about the clients. And this is a kind of a strange footnote here, given that we know about the allegations against Charlie and how he supposedly would go on sex tours and have relations with underage people. So this footnote here, after she talks about her clients, it says, our story could easily end here. The criminal court cases for Mila and Rosa are basically done, and they're on their way to recovering a sense of purpose for their lives, moving forward towards the future. Our story is different. It doesn't end at the moment that the do-gooder police force breaks down the brothel door, releasing the child sex slaves. It doesn't finish just because we are tired of hearing about the sad details of an exploited young person's life. Our story continues just as life continues for all victims of trafficking who go on living. Sometimes surviving day to day or even minute to minute is a challenge. The scars of trafficking might heal, but the wounds remain beneath the surface. Time moves forward, but things are messy and complicated. Our story could never be tied up in a neat package. Our story keeps going long after you finish this book. Okay, well, how thoughtful. Maybe she should have had a talk with her brother and maybe some of his associates who would take part in such things, allegedly. Okay, so more chapters about Rosa and Mila. Okay, so chapter 35, Lily is mad because her client Mila is pregnant. After all she's tried to do for her, everything they've tried to struggle to do to help her move on with her life. So she's just really disgusted that Mila is pregnant, but Mila is actually really excited about it and happy. Okay, finally she starts talking about Josh again toward the end of this chapter, about her client being pregnant and all the work that she's had to do for her. I hope this isn't what parenting feels like, because if it is, I'm going to be terrible at it. I brought these concerns to Josh last week over dinner. Josh was rinsing off the lettuce for the 5th time that night to ensure that no bad organisms could possibly invade the perfect body of his unborn child growing inside me when I got home from the Jacksonville clinic with Mila. Hey, babe, I'm in the kitchen, he called over the sound of running water as I walked in and threw my purse on the couch and contemplated joining it. I was spent from my day with Mila. Instead, I slumped into the kitchen and gave Josh a quick kiss on the cheek, and he leaned in for a full kiss on the mouth. I pulled away, in no mood for him. He stuck out his lower lip in a semi-mock pout, hair still rumpled from the rough day of an academic spent reading and writing from our couch. What you making? I think dinner's going to be really good, sweetie. I've got Caesar salad going here with fresh homemade dressing, baked sweet potatoes in the oven, and some fish that I was about to saute. Josh looked really proud of himself, like he just climbed an icy mountain in wintertime, instead of preparing a simple meal like I do for him every single night. What kind of fish? I inquired in full snark mode after a day of complete frustration. I got some tuna. The guy at the store said it was real fresh, and I was going to sear it in the pan just like you like. He was trying his best. It was obvious, but I let loose on him anyway. Josh, have you forgotten that I'm 8 weeks pregnant? No, of course not, honey. I think the way that you. I cut him off before he had a second to respond. And did you know that there are certain foods I'm not supposed to eat so as not to endanger the health of our beloved unborn child? I picked up a spatula from our collection on the counter and pointed at him with it. Again, no chance against Attorney Lily once she's gotten started. No, I guess you didn't, because it's not like you would purposefully feed me tuna and raw eggs when you know I can't eat it, right? It's not like you are trying to kill me, right? Why not make swordfish sashimi wraps with brie instead? God, what were you thinking? I threw the spatula across the room and stormed off into the bathroom, slamming the door. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and I waited a few minutes in silence for Josh to come after me. He didn't. I started running to hot water, letting it warm up enough for a shower. It is hard enough taking care of a baby when they are still growing and protected in your body. How in the world was Mila going to take care of a baby on her own? I disrobed and got into the shower, looking down at my belly for any evidence of the baby. None yet. Okay, then she starts crying in the shower. She's frustrated. Hormones are all over the place. Why is she taking it out on Josh? So she feels kind of bad that Mila seems more excited about being pregnant. So she keeps crying. Okay, so that's a pretty emotional chapter, isn't it? But it does seem like the Josh character is a very nice, patient man. We're just assuming that that is also how Dan Markel might have been in real life with Wendi, but of course this is supposedly a work of fiction, right? But it is pretty obvious that the author seemed pretty scared and ambivalent about having a child and being stuck in Hiawassee Springs with the Josh character, and you can already see the trouble brewing, the resentment, the disdain, her sort of haughty attitude toward the clients and feeling like she's the only person who can save those poor immigrants. So isn't it kind of funny that the people who have been convicted in the whole Dan Markel case are the people who are the immigrants too. So much for being such an advocate for all these downtrodden, oppressed immigrant clients, but yet using them possibly to be doing the dirty work. We're getting to chapter 38 next. So this is kind of slow, but I think it is a very good reading in terms of getting insight into the author's thinking and her motives, her attitude towards her husband and Hiawassee Springs / Tallahassee. It's pretty thinly veiled here. So the Josh character does seem to be pretty sympathetic. He comes across as this nice, doddering, kind of geeky, quiet type of person who is probably in love with the Lily character, whereas Lily is very ambivalent and non-enthusiastic. She has doubts about her marriage, as well as big doubts about becoming a parent. So it is kind of troubling to think that perhaps when in real life, when Wendi and Dan had their first child, that it was probably a very disturbing or jarring type of event for Wendi, and perhaps she really, really relied on her mother to come up and help her take care of the children, that she was totally incapable of doing that, especially after the two of them separated. So interesting book. There are some very tedious chapters. The writing is kind of bizarre at some points. It does seem very self-congratulatory in nature, where she feels like she's the big savior helping all these immigrants. And isn't that kind of funny when in the real life case involving Dan Markel's murder, the people who have been arrested and put in prison are the immigrants. So looks like the immigrants sure served a good purpose for Lily, either in her book or / real life. Since we're almost done, the next one will be most likely a live stream show, so we can finish up the rest of this book. There are 40-something chapters, but again, I think we're just going to skip over the Mila and Rosa chapters and focus on the Lily stuff, as well as the afterword. Thanks for joining in.